The night it happened, the bar was packed with noise, glasses clinking, laughter exploding, music rattling the walls, yet the moment his hand shoved her shoulder, the entire world seemed to stop. No one in that place knew her name. No one knew what she carried on her record, what she had survived, or what she commanded. Not him, not the people staring, not even the bartender who'd seen 1,000 fights. They saw a woman in plain jeans and a weathered hoodie. They saw someone small, quiet, alone. They did not see the warrior who had stood in deserts with bullets slicing the air. They didn't see the leader who had taken broken men and molded them into legends. They didn't see the commander who had just returned from burying one of her own. They didn't know her. But they were about to. Captain Elise Rowan had walked into the small coastal bar simply looking for air that didn't taste like grief, air that didn't echo with ceremony, folded flags, and the silence of a funeral that hit too close. The world outside smelled of salt and storm clouds. Inside, it smelled like cheap whiskey and the kind of laughter that tries too hard. She wasn't in uniform. She didn't want to be. She didn't want to be Captain Rowan, commander of Naval Special Warfare Group 3, the highest-ranking officer overseeing multiple Navy SEAL units. She wanted, for one night, to be Elise. Just Elise. But life had a way of reminding her who she was when she least wanted to remember. She slipped onto a corner stool, her back to the wall out of instinct rather than fear. The bartender, an older woman with silver hair tied back in a braid, gave her a nod and poured water without being asked. Maybe she saw something in Elise's eyes, something tired, something raw. The world had a way of recognizing wounds even when they were hidden under a hoodie. Across the room, a group of Marines on weekend liberty were gathered around a table. Young, loud, proud. The way Marines often were when they shook off the weight of deployments and training. Elise had nothing against them, she had commanded Marines before. She respected them deeply. But one of them, broad-shouldered, jaw like a brick, ego poured into a uniform still half open at the collar, kept glancing her way. She ignored it. Or she tried to. When he finally approached, his steps were uneven, soaked in alcohol and bravado. "Seats taken," he grunted, though there was no seat directly beside her. Elise lifted her eyes calmly. "Not here." "Not here," he repeated with a mocking tilt of his voice. "You think you can sit alone in this bar without somebody invited?" She didn't answer. She didn't return provocation with provocation. She didn't need to. But silence sometimes offends the insecure more than any insult ever could. His hand struck her shoulder, hard, careless, but intentional. And the room gasped. Elise didn't flinch. She didn't blink. The shove barely moved her body, but inside, something shook loose. Not rage. Not fear. Something deeper, the echo of a voice she had heard earlier that morning, a mother crying over a folded flag. Her operator, her teammate, her responsibility. And here stood a man shoving her as if she were nothing. The bartender froze. The Marines at the table straightened. Even the music seemed to hiccup. Elise's voice, when it came, was low but carried through the room like the slow draw of a blade. "Marine," she said, "you should step back." He scoffed. "Or what? You gonna call your boyfriend? Maybe he's the big tough type?" A long beat passed. She stared at him with eyes that had watched men die and watched others rise again. She didn't want a fight. God, she didn't want another battle. But she wouldn't let this moment become the one that broke her dignity. "I'm giving you a chance to walk away," she said simply. "Take it." But pride is a stubborn, blinding thing, especially in a young Marine trying to impress the world. He laughed, reaching toward her again. Before he touched her, the bartender slammed a palm on the counter. "Son, that's enough." But Elise slowly rose from her stool, not with hostility, but with the controlled, lethal grace of someone who had spent her life in the discipline of warfare. The entire bar seemed to lean forward, like an audience holding its breath before the curtain rises. "Do you even know," Elise asked quietly, "who I am?" His answer, another scoffing remark, never left his mouth. Because the door swung open at that exact moment, and two SEALs stepped inside, her SEALs. In uniform. Fresh from the funeral. faces solemn until they saw her. And when they did, they snapped to posture. A silent acknowledgement. Respect. Loyalty. The entire bar watched as both men, tough as iron and twice as intimidating, approached and stood behind Elise like shadows taking form. "Ma'am," the taller one said, voice steady, "your vehicle is ready. We'll escort you." The Marine's face drained of color. He did know now. Everyone did. When Elise turned her eyes back to him, they weren't angry, just impossibly tired. "Remember this," she said softly. "Strength isn't proved by shoving strangers. It's proved by taking care of your brothers. Someone you know didn't come home today. Honor him by being better." And without another word, she walked out. Not triumphant. Not vengeful. Just heartbreakingly human. The Marine didn't sleep that night. His name was Staff Sergeant Brooks, and the moment Elise left the bar, the weight of what he'd done settled onto his shoulders like wet cement. He wasn't a bad man, but he was an impulsive one raised on stories of toughness, fed on adrenaline and aggression until he believed silence meant weakness and gentleness meant softness. But the woman he shoved, she had looked at him with a type of sorrow he didn't know how to understand. A sorrow far older than his arrogance. The next morning, he found himself summoned to the base commander's office. He walked in expecting punishment. He stood at attention, spine rigid as steel. But instead of reprimand, he was handed a folder. Inside was her name. Her record. Her title. Captain Elise Rowan. Commander of Naval Special Warfare SEAL Teams 3 and 5. Recipient of the Navy Cross. Survivor of Blackwater Ridge, an operation he had learned about in training, one spoken of with awe and reverence. A mission where she had reportedly saved 12 operators under fire, refusing extraction until the last wounded man was carried out. Brooks felt heat crawl up his neck. He had shoved a legend. The base commander leaned back, arms folded. "She didn't report you," he said. "She asked us not to pursue action." Brooks swallowed hard. "Why, sir?" "She said you will punish yourself more than any disciplinary action ever could." The commander paused. "And she's probably right." That afternoon, Brooks stood at the memorial wall, the same wall Elise had stood before the day she entered that bar. Fresh flowers lined the base, the scent mixing with the ocean breeze. He imagined her standing there, trying to bury guilt she didn't deserve. He wanted to apologize. Not for shoving her, though he regretted that deeply, but for not seeing the weight she carried. Days later, he got his chance. He saw her walking along the pier, hands in her pockets, her face lifted toward the horizon as if searching for answers only the sea could give. He approached cautiously, respectfully, like a man approaching a sacred place. "Ma'am," he began. Elise turned, expression unreadable. His voice cracked. "I'm sorry. What I did was wrong. I didn't know. I should have known better anyway." For a moment, she said nothing. The wind tugged strands of hair from her braid. Then she sighed, not irritated, not angry. Just tired. "Staff Sergeant," she said gently, "I don't want your apology out of guilt. I want you to learn from this. That's all." "I will, ma'am. I swear it." She studied him for a long moment, her gaze softer than he expected. "Do you believe in second chances, Sergeant?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Good," she said. "Because I do too. And we all need them more than we admit." He swallowed, the words reaching deeper than he expected. Elise turned back toward the sea. "Take care of your Marines. That's where real strength starts." Brooks nodded. "Yes, ma'am." As he walked away, he carried something with him, not shame, but understanding. Respect. Growth. And Elise? She watched the waves roll in, carrying with them the quiet reminder that healing doesn't happen in grand gestures. Sometimes it happens in small, unexpected moments, like a shove in a bar that becomes a lesson in humanity. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope.